Well, let's talk about everything in order. And the first fact will be about new accessories. In the game added new headphones, but unfortunately they do not work. And in fact it's sad, it would be great to be able to download some music and quietly play it. Or just give the appearance that they do work. So that's why it's just an external accessory. It certainly lacks detail on the outside, but overall it's pretty good. Also, these headphones can be easily unique, namely they can be repainted in any color. So you will definitely not get bored. I give the headphones 7 points, not a bad item. So let's move on to the next fact. New musical items are the basis of the update 27.5, and the developers paid a lot of attention to these instruments. But, unfortunately, some details they did not take into account. And here is one of them. If you freeze musical items while playing music, nothing will change. They will continue their work only slightly frozen. And it won't even change the sound, it'll just change the texture. And so that was a little bit weird to me. It would be cool if the developers, for example, changed the sound of these instruments, or if they just broke. By the way, the instruments sound different on the space map. This is most likely because on the Cosmos map all items have an invited sound initially, meaning it's a special map effect. That's why it works that way. Put a like and subscribe if you didn't know about it. Well, let's move on to the next fact. Not many people noticed, guys, but the texture of the beaker has changed. And now the liquid inside the flasks actually looks much better. Where before it was some obscure just texture, now it's an actual liquid with its own shadow and with its own properties. Very nice rework of these liquids. Also reworked a little bit the effect of breaking off these flasks and reworked the flasks with properties. I mean those flasks that replicate the effects of syringes. And overall it's gotten a lot better, and honestly kudos to the developers for realizing that the beakers are a bit weird looking after all and adding a bit of volume to them. To be honest, I still don't understand why these test beakers are needed, and I would add some properties to them, because they are missing and it's just some useless item that breaks and then nobody needs it. Well, I give this change 8 points. I like such small changes, because it is also very important. Leave your opinion in the comments, of course, and let's move on to the next fact. The next fact will also be about the new beakers and the poison barrel. I don't know if this bug was in the last update, but I noticed it quite recently. Basically, if you throw any beaker into the poison barrel, an interesting bug will happen. The effects of the explosion of these beakers will for some reason be outside the barrel, not inside. That is clearly the layers are breaking very badly at this point, and frankly, it looks insanely weird. If you developers are watching me right now, make sure you fix this, because it's kind of even creepy. Write in the comments whether you're about this bug. And let's move on to the next fact. I don't know if the developers did it on purpose, but they added a very interesting and funny effect when destroying musical items by thermal treatment. Namely, if you put any musical object and simply set it on fire, they will start to blush, and blush really unusual. And burning for an insanely long time at that. Yeah, and the fire is like a different kind of fire than it normally is. I think visually you'll notice it right away. Overall a pretty good effect, I think and hope so, that the developers did it intentionally and it turned out well. I like the destruction effect. What do you think about it? Be sure to write in the comments. Give it a like and subscribe if you didn't know about it, and be sure to try it out. So let's move on to the next myth. I swear, I didn't know that before. Maybe it was added not too long ago, but for some reason I really didn't notice it before. All in all, it's pretty funny. Be sure to write in the comments whether you knew about it, but just look at it, it's insanely funny. Personally, it really amused me the first time. Trust me, I played with this for over half an hour and for some reason they really just endlessly jump around and just don't stop. All you have to do is just put the NPC down a little bit and it will jump like that until the game breaks. I don't know what's supposed to happen. I waited for quite a while for them to stop doing that. Be sure to try this out for yourself, because it's insanely funny, but I personally really enjoyed it. Again, write in the comments if you knew about this. Well, let's move on to the next fact. Well, the next myth will be about musical items and the acid map. Did you know that the appearance of music textures will change as soon as you dip them in poison? And they will change in some very strange ways. First of all, they'll darken and become covered in some kind of black invisible texture. I don't know why it works that way, but it works in a very strange way. Honestly, these are the first items that break in acid in this way. I guess the developers screwed up, and if you watch my video, make sure you fix it, because it shouldn't be like this. But overall it turned out to be quite funny and interesting fact. Write in the comments which texture you like better, the one that has been in the poison or the one that is fresh. Personally, for me, dark musical objects even look funny and interesting. What do you think about it? Write in the comments. So let's move on to the next myth. I swear, I didn't know that before. Did you know that Melon Playground has now added new hair? Well, yeah, I guess I couldn't surprise many people here, but to be honest, the fact is far from it. You knew that this hair could be recolored. And that's where I failed to surprise you. But there's a little passphrase and a very interesting fact in my opinion. You can't recolor gray hair. I don't know why, but this Beethoven hairstyle cannot be recolored, no matter how hard you try. I don't know if you've noticed that, but I don't think so. And it seems to me a very interesting fact and a very interesting pass hack from the developers. I really want to believe that they did it intentionally. Be sure to check it out if you don't believe me. Well, let's move on to the next fact. Did you know that instruments can be broken with a generator? And yes, this is somehow strange for me personally, because in my understanding, the generator should only, let's say, increase the volume of the guitar. And in general, musical items are simply not worked out here. It's a pity that, and, by the way, really cannot increase the volume. But in general, this is all solvable in the future, and I hope the developers, of course, are going to fix it somehow. And if you connect a generator to any of the musical instruments, they're not going to get louder, they're just simply going to eventually either break, or they're going to start burning, or they're just going to start conducting electricity. And that's where it's different, and it's all different, weirdly working. I don't know why it's so out of pattern. For some reason it's so out of systematization that it becomes kind of chaotic. And I think you can see that right now, because the effects of electricity are completely different for all instruments. Be sure to try this out for yourself. I personally found it insanely weird. Well, let's move on to the next fact. The next fact will be about the new music items. Overall, it's a cool setup, and to be honest, I was shocked when the developers tackled the sound. It turned out to be very interesting. Yes, and in general, very well worked out these musical sets. Here's a fact about these musical items, for example. If you make them play and in a moment make them stop, they will finish where they left off. And it works in an insanely interesting and insanely cool way. Pay your attention to the screen. The xylophone stops in a particularly cool way. It's like its music bag shrinks and stays there at the end. It's very interesting. But what if I told you that's not all the interesting facts about musical objects? If you smash any of the instruments, each instrument has its own unique shattering sound. And it works just crazy cool. I especially like the sound of the guitar. I mean, look at that. It's insanely cool that the developers pay attention to such details. I especially like the fact that they have great destructibility. And it's like every item is separating into little pieces. Be sure to try this out for yourself if you haven't already. A very interesting passphrase as far as I'm concerned from the developers. Kudos to them for that. Well, let's move on to the next fact. In the last video I showed you that with the help of map animation you can make an interesting press, but I did it quickly on my knees to just show the visualization of the effect, but skilled people have already made a ready-made map with a hydraulic press and it looks visually much prettier than I did it. In general, as for me, it's a very cool idea and I'm more than sure that it was me who came up with it first and just picked up the theme, so to speak, but I'm not sorry, just guys, use it. To me a hydraulic press is a very cool idea, but it works in a very strange way. For example, all objects that fall under such a hydraulic press behave like rubber balls for some reason. Perhaps the developers could not even think that we can use animations in such a way, so they did not think through the physics and did not take this point into account. Well, if you have not yet tried to squeeze with a hydraulic press your favorite objects, then be sure to do it, because it is crazy funny and crazy fun. Well, try it out on your own and let's move on to the next fact. Minutes earlier I told you about what happens if you burn musical instruments, but what if I told you that it's not all that interesting and cool? Because if you set musical items on fire, they won't just break, they'll lose their hitboxes, but they'll visually burn. And pay your attention to the screen right now, it's like the fire is going through the NPCs, the layers are also breaking and the instruments are behind and in front of the NPCs. It works in a crazy weird way, but visually I really like the way it looks. Realistically it's like everything in the perspective is really pulled apart. The fire behind Melon and the fire in front of Melon. The tools are burning and they're all red and it's just some kind of hell in the flesh. I don't know why it works like that, maybe it's just that the developers didn't see this point, but make sure you try to prefix this bug, because if it's fixed, you won't be able to try it anymore. One last fact about the flasks that were added in update 27.0. To conduct this experiment you need to go to the map acid. And the whole point of the experiment is that if you dip these flasks in poison for a second, they will remain empty. And be sure to check this out, because you can actually get some very interesting empty props. But here's another interesting fact, if you do this with flasks that are from the syringe section, they'll just disappear. Really, there's not even a hint of real physics in there. On top of that, these empty flasks, if you copy them, can't be pasted onto other cards. What do you think about that? Be sure to write in the comments. Rate this video from 1 to 10. Well, this is the end of my video, thank you all for watching, good luck, goodbye everyone, and remember buddy, as always, see you the other day.